Hello, and welcome to the Cancer Journey podcast. I'm Alicia,
And I'm Sherry Ann.
and we're going to start with our pest check in. And I'm going to start today.
Great.
So, physically, I am a 7.5, emotionally, an 8.25, spiritually, a 7.25, and hope is an 8.25. And my word is taking my time.
Okay. My turn. So physically, I am 8.2, emotionally 8.5, spirit 8.6, hope 9.3. And my word is quiet.
So today we're going to start by going through kind of the perspective of thrivers. Last week we talked more about the survivor perspective for National Cancer Survivor Day, and we wanted to talk more about this thriver place. That's a really unique space, and I think when we talk about kind of the span, we think of patients, survivors, and caregivers, but there's this really often maybe neglected space that we see a lot of people come through our organization as thrivers. So just want to talk about it and what their perspective has been and what we've learned from working with them.
Right. So say that again. In your perspective, what is a thrive?
From my perspective, a thriver, they can be metastatic. And I think what I've understood about what this thriver place is that there are a lot of unknowns in what their current status is. They could be still continuing treatment, but I think actually what I lean most into is that they find that the words patient and survivor do not define them. They don't fit or feel like they fit into those categories, especially as, they're broadly defined. But they find that thriver gives them both the hope and encouragement to continue being on their journey, as well as just recognizing the place that they're in, that they're still actively on a journey and that they're leaning into it.
I like that. I was kind of reflecting on the word, and I know that it's used a lot out there. So it's like it's hard to define it. And I know that the American Cancer Society kind of started this whole trend of we're going to call people who were just diagnosed a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And that always kind of not rubbed me the wrong way, but I couldn't put on that quote unquote label because I felt like when I was a patient, I felt like a patient, like I was going through something where I had to be patient, but it was something that was almost like done to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing that was being done to me, generally treatment, wasn't complete, or I didn't feel like a survivor until that was done. So that's how
Mm-hmm.
I balance those two words. But I like the word thriver because it seems to span so many more. And it's not only aspirational, which I think is what the American Cancer Society was trying to do, but it's aspirational in that I'm choosing this perspective. And that's why I love the word perspective, because
Mm-hmm.
when you, and I think we put this out there in one of our Wisdom Wednesdays, was when you change the lens that you're looking through, everything changes. And
Mm-hmm.
so the perspective of a thriver is that you're making this choice to actually step into, I am not behind the eight ball, but I'm choosing to thrive in my life and in what I do and who I am. And so I
Mm-hmm.
like that. And I especially like it for the metastatic because you mentioned unknown. Like it is so unknown that we need to kind of like harness some kind of level of hope so that we can take the next step forward in the day and
Yeah.
in, just in our life.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that it's easy, especially from people that I've talked to who they do consider themselves survivors right now. When they talk about their past cancer experience as a patient, when they were a patient, they were very zoned in and they're like, treatment, let's clean it up and get it out of the way. But when you're a thriver, especially if you're continuing treatment or you don't know where you stand in terms of your diagnosis at any given time, um, it can be really hard to continue living your life and continue, embracing everything life has when, um, if you have that kind of patient mindset and you're just like, I'm just trying to get through it.
Mhm.
Being a thriver, being metastatic, or just having those unknowns of your diagnosis, I think it makes it really, really difficult to have that hope for the future because you feel like you want to just like pull up and just be like, okay, I'm just waiting till it's over. I'm doing everything I know I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just trying to maintain until it's over. But as a thriver,
Right.
you're living through it. And so I love when people choose the word thriver because I know that they're living their life. They're like, there's so much more to me and there's so much more to this experience than just being in treatment and having my doctor's appointments and stuff. Like I can't and I will not put myself into that hole. I have so much more life to give and so much more to share. And so I actually love our thrivers that come through because they come with the most fiery energy and soul and passion for what life has because there are unknowns and they're not letting it hold them back.
Right. Oh, I love how excited you got at the end there, because what I know is that we hold not thrivers differently. I mean, I think we hold this with everyone, but especially when somebody is still going through some sort of treatment or is really tenuous with the unknown. It's like I'm so used to having this doctor appointment scheduled, and so I'm kind of like living till then, and then I'll don't know what news I'm going to get or if it's going to be good, or it's just this constant feeling of unknown. But what I
Mm-hmm.
like about what we do, especially, well, with all of our clients, but especially with the thrivers, is that we start to look at living life in conjunction, like having life and cancer happen at the same time. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
one or the other, one in front of the other. It's like, how do I live my life and also be with the cancer that's here? Um, yeah, just living life in conjunction, and that it's not either or, it's yes and. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's always powerful choice, powerful choice. And that powerful choice in that moment might be, I just want to sit down and relax and enjoy being here. Or
Yeah.
I'm making the choice to engage and do this project, and I'm, fiery and fast forward. It's that
Yeah.
I'm in charge.
Yes, yes. And that there's so much grace for whatever you need in that moment because um there's this knowledge of an understanding of your own vulnerability, right? And that certain things are out of your control and certain things are within your control. And so I do find that like our community that calls themselves thrivers, they tend to have that softness from themselves. Not always. I mean, it's a spectrum. We all go through ups and downs, and sometimes they can be really, really hard on themselves and being like, I should do this or I have to do this. But there is an amount of ease in just knowing and understanding that where they are right now, they still have to go into treatment. They still have to hold all of those doctor's appointments. They're still have the community around them that's embracing them and helping them through that treatment as well, but they're not stopping. And I do find that
Yes.
like sometimes these divers, they're also people who are survivors who don't necessarily they are not necessarily in treatment still, but it's almost the fear of recurrence, the shadow of cancer that
Yes.
still exists with them that can have people feeling more like a thriver because they feel like what since it's touched their lives, it hasn't released them from this the for lack of a better term, the grip of cancer, right? Because once it enters your life, there's always that fear that it can come back. And so when people still call themselves thrivers because of that, I think they have a lot of grace again for those unknowns in your life that can
Right.
come up,
Right.
whether it
I
is specifically cancer or something else.
right. And so I want to say that and actually just like underscore it because it's so important. We feel like we're the only ones that are worried because in our normal world, people don't walk around thinking, "Oh, is my cancer coming back? Is it going to come back? Should I even engage in planning this big vacation in 6 months because I don't know what happens in 6 months?" Or sometimes
Mhm.
we plan a year in advance because it's like an anniversary or a reunion, and we really want to engage with life, and then when I say we, because I know that I do this, it's like, is it going to be okay? Is life going to
Mhm.
be okay then? And yeah, there's travel insurance and all of that, but it's more of a mindset. It's like I'm not going to let this shadow of cancer, fear of recurrence, stop me. Or even that, how can I still engage and do the things that I want to do while I'm going through treatment and still
Mhm.
live my life? It's like, that's a big question. So I think this whole thriver mentality and a perspective again is this: I'm choosing me and I'm choosing
Yes.
my life and that's all I got. So I'm not going to
Right.
let it stop me. I know there'll be days that I'm not feeling so great. And that's being human. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not dealing with any illness right now, and I can tell you, one day I'll get up and say, I just don't feel like charging full speed ahead. I'm going to pay attention to how I am and just be with me. So
Right.
there's a lot of,
Right.
like you said, grace, but permission.
Yes. Yeah, so much permission and so much choice and feeling like you get to choose what's really best for you and your body and honestly just your heart and spirit in that moment as well. And I think because thriver is so undefined as a word, I personally don't know right now if it's recognized by, the American Cancer Society or something like that with a formal definition. But I do know that we are really impacted by words and how they define us. And so I really like that Thriver can be a little bit elusive. And that's why I think it's so important to talk about the perspective that it brings to be be to hold that term thriver for yourself as opposed to survivor, which can feel a little bit stagnant for people. It's such an important thing to like recognize that this perspective, and you can be both. You can really say that you're a survivor but you really feel like a thriver, but it allows people to have this freedom and this lightness and this like, okay, I don't feel defined and put into a box by what I am. I'm not a patient or a survivor. So, do you want to talk about how you felt and feel along your journey? I mean, being in and out of 5 different cancer like bouts. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really know if it felt like in between each of those for you that like you feel like you're like, all right, I've survived it. Because now looking back in the past, it's so easy how that could be an easy like, I'm a survivor, I'm a patient, I'm a survivor, I'm a patient. But I'm curious
Right.
where Thriver kind of landed for you.
Right. Um, well, I mean, so when we're doing work with our clients, we kind of look at the whole profile of them, and we call that their soul's journey profile. And I have positivity as number one, so it's really easy for me to always look at the hopeful side, positive side. And so I think that that's part of the reason why I chose Survivor. I mean, I've been going through this journey for a very long time, and so that it's kind of like that was the language that was there. Thriver is still kind of new,
Mm-hmm.
um, though it was out there, kind of in the outskirts. It's now becoming more mainstream, and I can absolutely now totally embrace the Thriver, and kind of say I don't even need Survivor, although there is kind of this um, badge
Mm-hmm.
of of accomplishment of once you're whatever amount of treatment or whatever specific treatment we're talking about, to have gone through that. So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when you get to a particular end, it does feel like, oh, I need something that says we finished it. And so I really get the patient survivor, but the thriver feels like it's like wherever I am, I'm choosing this. And
Mm-hmm.
going through, 5 diagnoses with cancer, each one a surprise. That doesn't mean just because it happened once, it's like, oh, that thing, that old shoe, I know it. It's still a major surprise. And it, at one point, I know at the third time, I went to my oncologist and I said, so is this like 3 strikes you're out?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, Sherry Ann, you're going to go through it as many times as it basically shows up. And so I was like, okay, that's that. But then after the third time, I'm like, okay, well, I'm done for
Mm-hmm.
me. It's like, I don't need this anymore. I'm making the claim. But then when it comes back and back again, it becomes, at one point, it was like, is this chronic? Which I think
Mm-hmm.
is kind of more similar to metastatic. But then when the fifth one came and it was a totally different cancer, it's like, okay, I don't know, threw my hands up, um, and just said, I think I need to take a different stance of
Mm-hmm.
waiting and watching and being so, I guess there's a little afraid
Mm-hmm.
to, I'm confident that whatever shows up, I'm going to deal with it the best I can. And that's all I can do. And I want to live my life, which means I want to travel. I want to see new cultures. I want to create new things. And probably it was a great piece of motivation and impetus, because it was like, well, you don't know how long you have. So how do you want to live this life? And so the big thing for me was choice.
Mm-hmm.
Choice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like that you said that, especially as like the fifth bout came around, you're like, I need to look at this differently. I need to approach this differently because it's not the same as every other one has been, and there is no playbook. There's no playbook to know what comes next and how to do better, be better, and you can only really choose to do what serves you best in this moment. And um I mean, I think that change of perspective for you personally and your approach personally has really changed your journey overall because you're how many years in remission?
So I can happily say that this year, 2024, I'm 10 years from my last diagnosis. I know. And it really was a kind of a mind shift that
Mhm.
really helped me. Now, I'm not saying, oh, I did a mind shift and then cancer didn't come back.
Of course,
I'm
of
just
course.
saying that it's like, I know that I can't live waiting for that other shoe to drop or for
Mhm.
something to happen, which is that unknown. It's more like, okay, life is unknown and we're just going to keep on going. And I mean, we just did our Greece retreat, which is like one of those, what do people call it? The bucket list. I've always
Mhm.
wanted to have a retreat with our coaches. And while we
Mhm.
didn't have all our coaches there, this was one of those once in a lifetime, like just the first retreat we've ever done with our coaches. And it was, I won't say it's perfect, but it was magical.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, there were plenty of knowns in that as well. And I think that I remember in the earlier years of after the last bout of cancer that you had, that it was kind of like, do we even say how many years in remission? Do we celebrate that? Like, how do we even think of it? Because well, there have been, quite a few before that. So just that unknown of heading into what was perhaps your survivorship probably felt a little bit more like thrivership, and embracing that unknown and having that new perspective and mentality of how you want to approach the unknown going forward, and how you
Yeah.
want to embrace it. And I think that um, this work that we do is really about embracing ourselves while having cancer or while cancer is present in your life, whether you are a patient, thriver, survivor, or caregiver, because everyone's affected. And I think what we really want is for us to all be able to acknowledge that cancer is in our lives, however it shows up, and still have our own full lives that are our
Yes.
own.
Yes. Full of
Yeah.
choice, permission, and preference. That's another
Hmm.
word that I really like. It's like, yeah, life is going to happen. And if I could have a preference of how I want it to go, who knows if that's going to happen? But why
Hmm.
can't I even say it? It's almost like
Hmm.
dreaming. It's that whole, and we do a lot of dreaming and preference in the work that we do. And surprisingly, if I didn't get to dream about the coach retreat at some point and envision it in my mind and feel it in my heart, then it's never going to really happen. So it all
Hmm.
starts here and then it goes here and then it manifests into the world
Yeah.
in the form that it's going to, not necessarily the one that I have necessarily envisioned. And it could be better, which it was, than I
Right.
could have even dreamed of.
Right, right. And there's that that goal, that dream that you have, and there's also that added bit that kind of covers it, lays on top of it of like this letting go of the control that
Mm-hmm.
we cannot exert on whatever that is. We can have that desire, we can make effort toward it, but at the end of the day there's that veil that like, and there's still unknown, and when we get there we will cross that bridge. And also what I'm hearing with all of this, like all the dreaming, which we do invite everyone to continue to dream, even if the dream doesn't come true, it's okay. You get to kind of release that because it's a dream. But I'm hearing underneath it that we don't have to delay our joy. You can
Yes.
still, it doesn't
That is
always have
really
to be a
it.
plan. Yeah, like you get to enjoy your life, and we want everyone to be able to enjoy their lives in the way that they want to, in a way that really resonates with them. Because putting it off until something happens and then you can cross that hump, it doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve anyone to put off experiencing that like soul feeling happiness and joy that comes with it. And I do think that's why I love so many of our thrivers that come through, because I can still feel like that joy radiating from them and that like deep passion that they have for the life that they do have. Um and I get to see them just beam.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that we do really special in our model and our framework is that making life real now, not
Yeah.
waiting for someday when something is over or that's done or everything's okay, but today.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's living.
Mhm.
So you want to know more about what we do and how we do it, come closer. We've got a couple of programs coming up next month in July that really let you experience, have a taste of what we do.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Sherry Ann, what is your takeaway?
I just even talking about it, it's the permission and the preference. It's like
Mhm.
it's so easy to just sit back and go, okay, let me see what's going to show up. And it really is. And
Mhm.
sometimes with the crossed arms, because you're preparing yourself, it's like, okay, what's going to show up versus how would I like it to be? And
Mhm.
even allowing myself to think in that way. Um, and so I'm going to take that word today of permission and let myself stand in that to have what kind of day I want to have.
Mhm.
How about
Yeah.
you?
My takeaway is that the thriver perspective is a perspective of love for yourself and for um the grace and ease that you can give yourself, but also letting yourself have those little victories. Like giving yourself those little something, like, I'm such a treat yourself person, and so I think that that also aligns with, like, the thriver perspective because we all deserve a little treat now and then, and sometimes we
I
withhold it
agree.
from ourselves. For what reason? So, I just love our thrivers, and I love the perspective that they've given me because it's not something that I would have known before talking to so many people who've come through and say that they really strongly feel that they consider themselves thrivers. So I'm really grateful for them and for what they brought to the community. So I think that my word is grateful. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And I do want to kind of just invite anyone who's tuning in right now that if you are a thriver or even a survivor, like I would love to hear more about your story and what thriver or survivor really means to you now. Well, we'll see you guys next week. And again, new episodes every Friday.
Have a lovely
Bye for
rest of
now.
your day. Bye for now.